Hey, what's up guys? This is T-Bone here. Welcome back to another episode of playing Legendary Game of Heroes. Now I'm very excited for this episode because I am on their test server today where I get to try out Gem Crush before it goes live. Now this is a test build, so the numbers could still be tweaked, but just wanted to let you know that this is not an official server. I'm not playing on an official environment, even though it looks like I'm doing an event. Now, as this is a test server, I do also have access to all of the previous decks available. So my plan is to play through various different decks that we're used to, that we've seen before, so that I can talk about the mechanics of Gem Crush and how it impacts the various teams. I'm also going to be showcasing the mechanics itself so that I can help you understand how it works. So let's get started. To start things off, I'm going to showcase how Gem Crush works and explain the mechanics of it. And to do that, I'm going to bring in a team that doesn't have haste, or in other words, it doesn't have battle skills available at the very beginning of the turn, and also cards that can spawn power gems as well as regular gems. And we're going to have enough relics to help us almost fill out the board in the very beginning of the turn. This is going to help us understand Gem Crush as a mechanic in general. And we're going to talk about it as the fight starts. Pay attention to the board here and take a look at where there are gems that will get crushed. So as the gems get spawned, you can see here we saw double crush. What that meant was there were two columns where the gems filled up completely with dark gems. And because these were all regular gems, when they crushed, they combined into Power Gem 1. Okay, and so regular gems will combine into Power Gem 1, but non-regular gems will combine into a higher level Power Gem, and I'm going to show you right now using the cards that we have. So here we have a couple of Power Gems that's already on the board. We have a couple of Power Gem 2s, a couple of Power Gem 4s, and we're going to activate these cards here. So we have now a pretty sporadic board here with a lot of Power Gem 4s and 2 mixes in there. And we're going to activate these one at a time. So as they fill up, as the columns fill up, they'll automatically get crushed. And you can see here we have a Power Gem 5 and a Power Gem 7 because there are already existing Power Gem 4s, etc. on the board. And if we continue going, we're going to have more columns here. And in fact, if you have multiple, they'll tell you too. So right there, you saw a Penta Crush showcasing that it had 5 columns that it had matched together. And so we have Power Gem 6 here, Power Gem 4s, and Power Gem 7 at the very far right. And because this is a commander event, you'll see that also the number of the commander boost is also increased there. The size of it has actually gone up. And so we're going to be able to then do a gem swap using the higher power gems so that we can get a good amount of damage even though there's less gems overall. And now let's take a look with a slightly different setup how Gem Crush will work differently when it's all power gems. So we're going to go ahead and activate all of the battle skills here. And as we see the Power Gem 4s fill up the board and they get crushed, you can see now we have automatically converted them into Power Gem 8s. So in Gem Crush, there are different levels of power gems. You can go from, as you have a column of Power Gem 4s, it gets upgraded to Power Gem 8 or it gets crushed into Power Gem 8. And then you can also go all the way up to 20, and the levels are 5 to 8, and then 9 to 12, 13 to 16, finally 17 to 20. And so the way it works is as you get more of these higher level gems together, and when they get crushed, you're going to see higher level power gems. And the thing to note here too is that we're never going to see a full board of gems anymore because they always automatically crush, but they won't necessarily mean that you get nothing because you can see here you can still get a good sized number of gems on the board provided that you don't fill out the board all at once and crush them all together. And so here we can go ahead and do a power gem swap here, and this gets us 120 times multiplier, and the amount of damage that we can get is still really strong even though there's less gems overall. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start testing out different decks, ones that we've seen in the past, and I'm going to show you how they now will work differently with Gem Crush. And I'm also going to be doing a regular boss fight to showcase how the engagement will look when we are seriously doing a battle against guild bosses. We're going to kick things off with the Wizard of Oz deck. So Wizard of Oz is a deck where you want to fill out the board, and then you take advantage of a Dorothy so that you can repeat that process the very next turn. So how would that work after this? Let's take a look now. So in here, I have the Armor Automaton, and I have one Dorothy in here. Now, the problem with being on the test server here is I don't have any allies I can bring in, all right? And so I don't have strong allies, and as a result, my teams are relatively weak. And so I'm not expecting to beat the bosses here. So the goal here is to just understand how this game will play out. So I'm going to go ahead and activate here, and then I'm going to activate the Armor Automatons to create the battle skill, to create the power gems here. So we're going to create the power gems, and I'm going to also create more here, and then I'm going to activate Dorothy so that I could get more power gem 2s the next turn. But you see here, I didn't actually nothing actually get crushed, and that's because I don't generate a ton of power gems with these cards. And so at this point, it behaves exactly the same as I would expect. And so I'm going to go ahead and do the power gem swap right now, and we're going to wait and see what happens the next turn. So the next turn, what happens is Dorothy's ability will kick in, and she's going to help spawn full board power gem. So you can see here we got a full crush, and in full crush situation, we see here power gem 8s on the board, but they're all in the middle. So we no longer have the full board like we used to see. And so theoretically, this gives us, it should give us about the same amount of power as if we had a full board. But what is different now is I can still activate my Armor Automaton because the power it has a 1-turn cooldown. So I could still add a little bit more of damage to here. Although the difficult thing here is there's just less water gems to go around to help me with the match. And so without any gemfall ability, and with if Armor Automaton didn't have a 1-turn cooldown with power gem spawning abilities, I will be limited in the number of power gems I can have here. And so this is going to be definitely an experience that's going to be feel very different than what you're used to. All right, because you're no longer going to see the full board of power gems, and in fact, when you can instantaneously spawn a full board power gems, it crushes into just single power gems in the center. That could be a little bit a very different experience to get used to. But this is how the Armor Automaton and the Wizard of Oz deck works. So earlier I mentioned something about Gemfall, and I have a perfect example of a deck to show you that can illustrate how Gem Crush and Gemfall would work together. So that's with the Elevated Guardians deck, which has a Gem Destroy capability as well as the Gemfall mechanic also. So let's go ahead and take a look at this deck in action and see how this, with Gem Crush, this deck will behave a little bit differently. So we're gonna jump into the fight here, and let's take a look as we get started. So we're gonna start by crushing some gems here. Now, because of the randomness of how the gems will spawn, sometimes you don't actually get multiple. You can't get multiple columns, and if you get only one column, you won't fill up the battle skill. But as long as you can fill up at least 2 columns, you're always going to have. Most of the cases, you're always going to have your battle skills ready to go. And so we can go ahead and get started here. So we're going to go ahead and activate the Star Blissed Feral and take a look at what happens here. So take a look at this. This is insane, all right? It just filled up the entire board with a single card, and it crushed everything to Power Gem 8s, okay? And we've just activated 1 card here. I'm going to go ahead and activate another card and take a look what happens here. So again, everything gets crushed, and now we are seeing more cards getting, like you can just see more crushes happening, and now we have Power Gem 9s and 12s in here, and this is with just 2 cards in here. I wish I had gotten this deck. It came out in the New Dawn season, and I don't have it, but seeing how it works with Gem Crush, this is absolutely insane. All right, and now we're going to go ahead and kick off the Gemfall ability, where we destroy all the gems, and because of all of the Gemfall that is still in here, we are just seeing more and more upgrades here. However, the main difference here is when you have just regular gems that fall down and it gets crushed onto an existing power gem, it doesn't actually upgrade it. Okay, so take a look here. We have Power Gem 9s, 12s, and 8s. And 12s, just like we see here. If we continue to do our Gem Crush here, I want to see whether or not we actually upgrade them. And I see 12s, 9s, 12s, and here's another 12. I don't think it really upgrades them entirely unless we have additional power gems that show up. And so in this particular case, the blessed Star Blessed Pharaoh is the one that really gave it that ridiculous amount of boost to our power gems in the middle here. But that just kind of goes to show it is a really strong mechanic here, and it will work well in this new meta. So we took a look at Gemfall, and we saw just how much it benefit from the Gem Crush mechanics. Now let's take a look and see what happens when we put a Rainbow deck in here. Will this deck be better because of Gem Crush? Well, I can tell you that Rainbow decks, the way it works is that it creates the non-affinity power gems across the columns. And so you're going to get 5 different affinity power gems on the columns. And so because of that, they will never crush. And so we're going to take a look and see what happens here, but we do get 1 here, and so we're going to go ahead and match the gems here. Remember, if you crush less than 2 columns at the beginning of the turn, you're not going to have enough to power up your battle skills. And now let's take a look here. So we have cards that can create the rainbow gems, and so we're going to go ahead and activate these. And as expected, they don't create, they don't trigger Gem Crush because they're all different affinity. But pay attention here, we were able to upgrade one of the Power Gem 4s to Power Gem 5 because we created the Power Gem over it. And so the upgrading of Power Gems is still available through the regular means. And you can see here we went from 4 to 5, and we can go from 5 to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. as long as we can keep creating power gems over it. And then we can go ahead and use the battle skills that will upgrade and also convert our gems. At that point, then the Gem Crush will kick in. And so you can see here, we have a slightly better power gem now. And with this particular setup, it doesn't seem too bad actually. Although it's just, because we have the ability to upgrade existing gems, and as you convert and upgrade the gems, they can sometimes crush into the middle. That can give you a little bit of an increase in your power output. But overall, I would still say that rainbow decks aren't going to be that much better in the Gem Crush era, although I think that it actually has improved it slightly, although it's still not one I would go after. So another mechanic that we've seen also are decks that will spawn power gems, and it will spawn that many gems over the next few turns, as we saw with Haunted Hunters, which was one of the first decks to have this mechanic. And so let's take a look and see, how it's different and how we would need to strategize around this type of deck when we use them. So, basically with all the decks before, it's pretty much always the same. As much as possible, just go ahead and activate everything so you can fill out the board, and then just kind of let the deck do its thing. Knowing that we can't have a full board of power gems anymore, it's going to change things up a little bit. And so here what I've got is I've got all cards that can spawn 6 power gems and will create the same number of power gems in the next turn. And so instead of creating all of them, because I know what will happen if I create all of them, is that I will end up if I activate all of them, I will end up filling the board, and then they would just all crush into the middle. And so instead, I think a better option here might be to leave it a little bit empty. Okay, so we're going to have Power Gem Force here. We don't have anything crushed right now, but what I can do is I can take advantage of the fact that it will spawn that many Power Gems the next turn, plus my relics. And so I'm expecting to see some gems being crushed here in this very next turn. And so you can see it starts happening, and we start getting gems crushed here. And now I can go ahead and activate more. And the idea here is I don't want to fill up everything, because I don't want it to suddenly turn into just a single row of power gems. Having some gems here will be helpful. And so this is an ideal situation where I don't have everything, but I have some upgraded power gems, and I could continually get this train going and just continuously deal damage. And in a commander event, this is not a bad, a bad situation to get into. But here you can see, finally, because I had, all these gems that get created, I do actually, match everything. But hopefully by this point, I'll be able to deal enough damage to take out the boss, hopefully at this point. But the idea here is, not activating everything at the same time can be a benefit here. So we're going to go ahead and exit this out, and we're going to take a look at the next deck. So if you guys remember, during the Chinese New Year time frame, the Auspicious Defenders team came out. And this is a team that isn't a deck that focuses on a ton of power gem creations. So what happens here is this deck is capable of creating some power gems, but it doesn't create a whole lot. And so what we're going to do is we're going to see in this situation where the deck itself isn't a great gem spawner deck, we're going to see how it behaves with Gem Crush. Now keep in mind that this is also a Slayer deck, so it's not expected to do a ton of damage there. And so one of the things that we can see here is we have some power gem force here, and they're all in the same column. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is like, well, sometimes you may want to save a gem, and the way to do that is you have to break up one of them. And generally you can only save about one. And so this would be the way to save your power gems. You break it up in the middle and you put it somewhere else. And now we have some power gems in here that we can take advantage of. Now let's take a look at our next turn and see what we can do. So each of these cards here, it's capable of creating 3 power gems, and so 3 or 4 power gems. So you know that it's not going to fill up the board. So let's go ahead and activate them at one at a time. And even with the relics in here, you can see here we're barely able to fill up even just a single column. Okay, and so this is the case where this deck, as it is right now, it won't change too much, except we have now, one case where we upgraded our power gems to a single instance of power gem 8. And so if we can save these, gems, the idea here is we can then hopefully power up these power gems and then upgrade them to higher level power gems so that it gets to a point where enough of those power gems will deal more than the damage that we would get otherwise with a full board of power gem 2s or 3s or even 4s. I think that's the idea, although I haven't figured out the way to really make it work there. And so in a Slayer fight, this would have been okay because we wouldn't be getting attacked every single turn, and this has a 2-turn cooldown. So this deck actually, in my opinion, works out better. And so what I am learning from this experience here is the lower your cooldown is, the better it is because of Gem Crush. So with Gem Crush, I think it's increasing the need for a deck to have a low cooldown, such as 2 turns or even 1 turn. 3-turn cooldown decks is going to become a little bit more difficult in a Gem Crush setting, just because of the way that the gems will no longer fill up the board. And so that's going to be something very interesting to take a look at. Now the thing with Gem Crush is because of the way that it crushes everything, it can have a very different impact on a different style deck, such as the Verdant Druid. So with the Verdant Druids and the Making You deck, what you're getting here is a passive power gem spawn. As long as there's a power gem on the board, it will always create 6 power gems. And so if you have multiple of those cards, then with the combination of the relics as well, you can always fill up the board. And it's a very powerful deck because you can always have a full board of power gem 3s. But in this case, let's take a look what happens. So we're going to go ahead and do a gem match here. So we have 1 power gem on the board, and we're going to wait until the next turn where we're going to passively fill up the board. But then everything gets crushed into a single row of power gems. And with the Verdant Druid's deck, I don't have any other abilities that will give me additional power gems. And so I'm left with just a single row of power gems here. So I have 7 power gems plus 4 regular gems for a total of 11 gems on the board. Now we know that the damage output is calculated by the number of power gems and also total number of gems on the board plus the sum of the power gem numbers here. And so with, let's say we have all power gem 8s here, 8 times 7 of them, we have a factor of 56, and that's going to be lower than the full board power gem 3s, which is a factor of 105. And so in this particular case, this is actually going to be weaker. Okay, and this is just a very interesting sort of change in the dynamic of our decks. So what I see here is some decks with the way that it's played will behave differently, and it's going to be weaker than they used to, simply because we don't have a full board of power gems anymore. But some other decks, it's actually a lot stronger, and so I think some mixing and matching is going to be required to make this deck work. I think in this particular case, I would need to bring in less of the making use and start and put some other cards that can give me more power gems. In fact, ideally, if I could make it so that I don't fill out the board, I could crush more gems to get them into more power gems, and then activate some power gems to then fill up the rest of the board, so I have a combination of power gems and higher upgraded power gems, so I can get actually higher damage overall. And so that's just some shift in thinking for how we would need to play our decks differently. So now, of course, I'm going to be showcasing the Glorious Golems, one of the most popular decks, one of the fan favorites as well. So let's take a look and see how the Golems deck will be impacted, or how you'll be changed based on the the Gem Crush mechanic here. Because Golems is a deck that a lot of people use in their guild versus guild fight, and so it's important for us to understand what's different, how it's changed, and what has this make this deck weaker or stronger, or no change at all. The first thing I would say is that our turn 1 is going to be a little bit different, because this deck is capable of having a full board of power gems on turn 1, and you can see they all get crushed into power gem 4s, power gem 5s here. And so we without seeing it in action in its own event, it's hard to tell whether that's stronger or less than its own event. But we're going to play it the way we normally would, right? So we're going to go ahead and do a gem swap after we activate High Performance Area, and then we're going to see all of the passive ability kick in to create the gems here. And now we will be able to create 6 power gems every single turn, every single activation of our golems here. And so here is where you will have to make a decision. So you know that you can create 6 power gems here, so it might be okay to leave it here. And in most cases in guild versus guild, you don't need more than that. Okay, and so what we've done here is we've left ourselves with a few more battle skills to work with, and we were able to crush some gems here. And take a look here, because the passive ability is going to give us, bring us into this situation. But I could save myself by having more power gems created now. So because I saved my my battle skills, I can go ahead and activate another one, and still have plenty of power gems to go around. And so this doesn't feel like it's been negatively impacted too much, mostly because I can play it differently, and the number of turns of cooldown it has is low enough that it's not too big of an issue here, and I can still get lots of gems here. And this is, I think that the most important thing here is the number of power gems that you can create here is fixed. Okay, because you can create only 6 or 3 each time, and so it's fixed here, and so I can control when to activate. And in this particular situation, I know that what I should do is I should just go ahead and do my match here and wait for my passive ability to kick in, and then I have battle skills to help me fill out the board, because I know it's going to fill up, and I'm going to have just a single row here. And so I think the interesting thing here is it's going to make you think. It's going to make you strategize how you play your deck differently, knowing when things are going to happen. The fact that you can expect it to be a full row of power gems when you know that it's going to fill out the board, I think will help you in the long run, make a decision on how you want to play the deck. And in fact, without any killer skill, this deck is still doing really well to be able to do some good damage. I mean, I was just against a diamond boss there, but still, it's you can see that it works really well. So having said all this, trying out different teams, I'm also going to play a guild boss here, and I'm going to try this with the same team that most people are using, that is using Glorious Golems, using Usurpers of Fortune, Freedom Fighters, and also with the Fierce family, so that we could try out and see if this performs the same as how we expect it to. Now, my Freedom Fighters is only a level 1, it's 1 star, so it's going to have less total damage output. But the idea here is, if we can show, I want to show whether or not this has a capability of dealing about the same amount of damage as it is today. So this is with Gem Crush enabled, and so let's go ahead and play this out and see how we do. And so the way that you would play this, as I normally would, is to activate high performance area first, and then we're gonna go ahead and do a gem swap, get hit, and then we're gonna activate everything, including the Freedom Fighters here. But the difference here is the power gems here, they don't fill up the board, and so it will take a little bit longer to figure out what to do next. But I'm still able to deal 6.1 trillion here with a single star, Freedom Fighters here, and so it's not too bad, right? But I think the main difference here is, when you're used to having a full board of power gems, so you can just kind of swap and forget. The fact is, this is going to require you to think a little bit more, and it's going to take more time to get used to. Right? Like, I'm used to having all of the power gems get created here, and I can simply just activate everything. So the thing to note here is, it will take time to get used to putting all of the gems together, but that it's going to be available always in the middle. It's always going to get crushed in the middle, so at least there's that focal point that you can always focus on. So if you're going to fill out the board, then that you can count on having the middle being there. And so we're gonna go ahead and just do match here. I think once I got used to that initial change in not having everything be in the same, not everything being filled up, I can just focus on doing a gem swap in the middle. The challenging part is looking for the rest of the gems that fill up. Okay, and we're able to do this fairly easily because the amount of damage that we can do is quite high there. So level 300 would be 348 trillion, and we were able to do this relatively easily with my setup there, and so it doesn't feel weaker, right? So the setup here isn't dealing less damage. And keep in mind, like I said, my Freedom Fighters is unleveled. It's level 1 pink star, and most of these are all the same. All of these cards are just level 1 star, except for my Fierce family. They gave me gems to do a vault pull, and so I did that, right? And so it's capable of doing the same amount of damage, if not better, with this setup. And I think it's just knowing where to do your gem match is the most important part. But this team still rocks in the gem crush meta. All right, so that is Gem Crush in a nutshell. Hopefully, if you enjoy seeing it in action with different teams and also against the guild boss there was a lot of different teams set up that I couldn't show, but I'll definitely be looking for opportunities to showcase them in the future. So I wanted to also remind everybody that what you saw here is on a test server, and so between now and when the Gem Crush is live on June 23rd, things could still be tweaked. And also any of the in-game progress and also like the game gem resources, like the gems, gold, and all of those things that you see, they don't translate over to my account. And so this is just on the test server for demo purposes. I do want to thank the network team for giving me access to it so that I can make this video. And I learned a lot about Gem Crush, and hopefully so have you. So my personal opinion about this mechanic change is that, first, it's going to change everything. It's going to change, all the game modes that we know about. And the biggest change is how we're used to playing the game, and that is focusing on, filling out the board with power gems. That is, what we've been used to playing with Legendary for a very long time. And with this change here, it's going to feel very different. And in some cases, I think it's going to make you feel very foreign to this change. And it may not be a good change for all. My personal opinion about this is, based on what I saw, it didn't seem to change things too badly, but it definitely has, given some metas a huge boost, such as the such as the Gemfall and Gem Rain meta. And in some cases, such as the Verdant Druids here, it actually made us seem weaker. And so there definitely is still some tweaking and some strategy changes that we're going to have to go through, and optimizations that we're going to have to learn in order to sort of get back to what we're used to. But I think that this is going to force a change in how we play the game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I just think that it definitely will take some time to get used to. So I'm personally looking forward to seeing it getting rolled out, but I do want to hear your thoughts. Let me know what your thoughts are, feedback. After seeing this video, do you have concerns, or do you feel like you know more? What is your feedback? What do you like or dislike about it? Let me know in the comment below. I will be streaming as soon as the event goes, as soon as this is live on June 23rd as well. So join me for my live stream, and I will be showcasing the deck with the new Gem Crush mechanic, so that we can go through it together, and I can provide more information at that time as well. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch this. Hope this has been helpful. Take care, and I'll see you next time.